Salve a tutti, sono Almarocco e benvenuti in un nuovo video. Oggi siamo qui per fare un'intervista a Coma, noto anche come Black Art, famoso per essere stato chitarrista e compositore dei Kovenant. Prima di iniziare lo ringrazio per la sua disponibilità, per aver accettato di essere nostro ospite, vi lascio l'intervista e vi auguro buona visione. Nice to meet you, thank you for seeing us today.
Yeah, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Why you started to do music? Why you started to do with metal music? Tell me about the beginning of your career.
I don't really have a good answer. I was just attracted to metal when I was a kid, growing up, I was into Iron Maiden and Metallica and I was really young and it just grew from there. So it was just natural for me to do that. I think so that was just my interest. So it's just a natural extension of what I wanted to do or was interested in. So I listened to metal for a lot of years and then started doing it myself when I was like 12, 13. So that was just not really a discussion. That was just like a natural progression, It wasn't really a decision. It was just something we did, or I did. Yeah.
Let's talk about your work with Kovenant.
Basically, we started the band locally here, me and Nagash, I guess you call him now, and some other guys, some friends, and we just started messing around with music, and kind of death black metal from the start, and we just morphed into a more black metal. I wouldn't say black metal, but more dark metal, Nordic style act in 92, 93, I guess. Around the time when a lot of stuff was happening with those bands, and we kind of grew in that direction and the scene and everything. So so we just started basically, and we some of the guys fell off the band, so it was just me and Nagash. From that point on, I guess, and we started recording demos and writing stuff, and I've always been, sort of like writing a lot of the music for the band, a lot of generating the style in the direction of where we're going, and so most the debut album is In Times Before Life is kind of like that was like the purest form at the moment, at the time, but that's I wrote a lot of that stuff when I was really young, like going back in school. I remember sitting writing this shit and I was like in the nights and evenings, and I was really, really not that old at all. So it goes quite a long way back, those stuff, and also some of the Nexus stuff is really old. It's like the more melodic Baroque inspired stuff is really kind of back to I would say like 95, 96 or something like that. So it took some time to write that stuff, but so it was just a development from there. We got into that, and we recorded the album actually in, I think, 94, 95, something like that. And it took a couple of years to get it released. It was like not a lot of money involved in the scene. People couldn't afford to pay for studio bills and releases. And it was kind of like really low key, old school stuff. And so it took some time. We had like a couple of different labels that were attempting to release it, and some more well-known labels we talked with at the moment, at the time as well. But it's kind of competitive, like some of the Norwegian guys, and they were like really, I wouldn't say hostile, but it was like a lot of competition in the scene, So I think we went with in the end we went with More Grim Records, and in England it was like Cacophonous, More Grim. But it took quite some time, so it came out in 97, I guess, something like that. At which point we already had kind of morphed into the Nexus era band. Nagash had moved to Oslo, and he started hanging around the scene to get in touch with more people, and we recruited more members and made it like into a bigger band, not just a two-piece band, even though it's always me and him that were kind of like the band in that sense. But we morphed it into something else, and a lot of the music was like specifically we decided to make it more technical and more kind of, we wanted to push the sound, or at least I can only speak for myself, but I wanted to push the sound further, because black metal was at that point already kind of established and kind of repetitive, you know. So I really wanted to push the sound forward and do something else with the. And you can hear a lot of the influences there. You know, it's like classic Iron Maiden twin guitar stuff and all that shit. I was really into that when I was younger. So I tried to bring that with me and just like more different guitar techniques, you know, not just open string noise, but I wanted to include more rhythmic stuff and more technical stuff and more song structure and things like that. When some people would call it commercial, but in those days they did anyway. But that's what I wanted to do with the music. I wanted to kind of like push the sound of the whole genre forward. So it became well, an interesting mix of sounds. You know, we had like my melodic kind of song structure, and then you have like Estenu, which just has more like a death metal influence. You know, he has different approach, and then Heller's drumming, which is, you know, and Svärd also played on the album. So it was like a mishmash of different styles that came really well together. But that was intentional. We really wanted to push the genre there, and I think we tried to do that with the next album as well. And certainly the two next albums also we had that kind of mind frame. So it was always like a process of trying to develop the sound, you know.
What about the passage of the symphonic black metal sound of the first album
Yeah.
from the experimentation of Nexus Polaris, and how you judge the importance of the true first Kovenant album had the impact they had in the black metal scene of 90s?
Well, we didn't really think about the impact it had on any scene. It was just about doing what we wanted to do, and it was kind of like it was like I said, it was a really competitive scene. You know, everybody wanted to kind of like push forward and be like acknowledged as the leaders of the scene. You know, like with Timmy Borgir coming and all that stuff, we were really competitive in where we wanted to go. So it was a lot of rivalry in that sense that motivated us to sort of like push things. And also the technical abilities that we had as musicians, I think, were quite okay, at least at that point when we were younger, you know. So we wanted to like utilize that and really be a more technical band, you know, like not necessarily just about the atmosphere. But yeah, In Times Before Light was really like purely atmospheric, you know. Is really like but you can hear all the way through the progression of the band that we kept those melodic kind of core elements, you know, in the songwriting. At least I did, for me at least. And Nexus was also really symphonic, but it was just we wanted to change the form, you know, and with animatronic, which became more industrial inspired or more. That also had like a really big impact at the time, even bigger than Nexus. Just like from a zeitgeist kind of perspective, animatronic had like a really strong impact on the present time when it came out, you know. So for us, the experience of really, even though Nexus Polaris, you know, stands like a classic album, I guess, if that's not arrogant to say that, but I hope. But I think animatronic was like the biggest, you know, thing for us in the as a band, you know, with you know, just the kind of attention and feedback and concert and stuff we got at the time. So certainly that was like an era that also I really value a lot, you know. Even if the songs changed and stuff changed, it was a bit more influenced by its current time. You know, we can hear those influences like the end of the 90s, start of the 2000 industrial kind of stuff. You know, we really got into that. But that was always part of the mind frame of the band. We wanted to like change things and move things forward. You know, that was always part of the inspiration of what we did. So yeah, some people thought that was wrong. Some people were into that. I don't really care, you know. That was what we wanted to do, so I have to be honest about our musicianship. At least I try to be honest in what I do. So yeah, that was what it was at the time. So obviously it developed from there into a SETI as well, which is an entirely different sound, you know. And yeah, that was that was a bit, but it was a big deal at the time when we changed our sound. But the reception of the album going from Nexus to animatronic was really, really well, actually. That people kind of remember it with a little bit more like, wow, we changed ourselves. But it was really well received, and we, like for us, that was a really success, So we don't have any bad recollections of that period. It's not like the Covenant was not only the true first form. It's been like a progression over time. So even though people remember the band as like the symphonic Nexus era band, I guess is what stuck with people the most. It's for me, that's just a part of it. That was just like a moment frozen in time, and obviously what the band is doing now is just a small fragment of the stuff we did over the years. But yeah, it's and I guess we grew more and more away from the black metal scene. I wouldn't even call us a black metal band at any point. We were like a dark symphonic band, but obviously we grew out of that. So, but that was just our origins and our roots. So we're always going to be involved in that scene. But I wouldn't call us a black metal band at any point in time, actually. Never.
What about the end of Covenant in 2005?
Well, it wasn't really an end as such, It was just more, uh, I don't know. I think I became personally kind of like bored of the whole uh, music industry recording stuff. It was like difficult to, after SETI, which was, yeah, I think a lot of people kind of like, we got like a little backlash from that album that wasn't all too positive, commercially speaking, and the label was kind of, a little bit reserved. So I did write. Well, I have to say because that was how it was. I did write the final, well, not the final album, but I did write an album in 2006 to 2007 approximately, which at the time I thought would have been the perfect kind of like next step, and it was also a bit like a new thing for us. But dynamically, we weren't really an active band anymore. It was just Hellhammer had left, and we had some session members and stuff. But yeah, they kind of like the inspiration wasn't there, because yeah, it's to do that. And personally, I wanted to do it like on a really high level. I wanted that to be like real statement, something that stood the test of time. So yeah, I just had the opinion that if it's not possible to realize it, maybe because of some other conflicting conflicting views with different band members, or maybe some financial reasons, I just didn't see how it was possible to realize it the way I wanted. So I just said, well, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna spend more time on this because it's too ambitious. To be honest, that was basically what it was. So so we just left it at that, and we didn't make any definitive statement about not doing anything or do whatever. It's just no plan really. That was just how it went, basically. Yeah.
Why you are not involved in the Covenant reunion?
A lot of different reasons, but basically that was what they wanted to do, and what I was able to do and wanted to do was quite opposite. So they wanted to do like this reunion Nexus thing, and that's fine. Old bands do that when they get old and retired, and that's fine. But that's not what I wanted to do with the band. So we had like some talks about it, but we had very different opinions on what the future would be, I guess, and personally what I had the possibility to do. So they just pretty much, I think, decided that that's what they wanted. So yeah, I'm not going to make a big problem out of it, but we didn't really agree on the path forward. So I don't want to say much about that. I'm sure they're happy with what they're doing now, but yeah, we haven't really talked much about it. I don't talk to the guys about stuff anyway, so I haven't really been updating on what they're doing now anymore.
Let's talk about your work with Tro.
That's very limited, actually. I was just that was Stian's or Nagash's thing, but I've just been yeah, I just contributed very briefly on that with some stuff. To be honest, I don't even remember what I did on those albums because that's not really something I put my heart into. I know we used some of my old stuff on a couple of the records. I think I just used some old stuff I've written, which is fine. And I did some guitar and keyboard stuff, but that was just like a guest appearance. I was not really involved much in that. And so yeah, that's his solo thing. That's not really. I couldn't tell you which songs I was was contributing on anymore. I don't remember that stuff. It's not so personal to me. So I did a lot of different stuff over the years that people don't know about. After I stopped, I guess after we stopped working with the Covenant, I did like a couple of years when I did studio productions. I did a lot of programming, basically orchestral stuff, drum stuff, some production stuff for different bands. Some stuff that I didn't want to, or they didn't want me to be credited on. So some stuff like that, you'd be surprised, I guess. But I did some stuff, but it was a little, I didn't really. It's a struggle, At this point, we're quite far up in the 2000s already. We're like in maybe 2008, 9, 10, and the whole, digitalization of music had obviously happened, and it's quite hard to succeed like as a producer, musician type. Yeah, today. So I just dropped the whole thing. I said, I don't want to work myself to death with argue with some, fucking guy in Dubai about some guitar parts I don't give a shit about. It's just paying me to help him out, and it's too much work, and people have too much expectations, and there's not enough professionality in the business. I just said, fuck that. I'm not doing that anymore. It's an early grave. So I don't want to work for other people anymore. I decided that I'm not going to work with, or at least not for other people anymore. Even if it's, old colleagues or old bands or whatever. I want to do stuff that's pleasing to me musically, or at least mentally, aesthetically. Yeah, and that's always what we did in the past, but that's why it became, I think, an interesting band, because we had a very honest approach to what we were doing. Even if that was change, the people didn't like it, was still making tension, and some crazy tension. So yeah, I think I made that decision. So I'm not being definitive about what I want to do or not to do in the future. That's all open for me, but at least I know I'm not going to be like somebody's sucker, doing a lot of work and arrangement and stuff for some other people's point of view. That's I'm done with that, So whatever I do, it's going to be something that I'm honest about, at least, and not just, for the sake of whatever, fame, money, whatever reasons people have, So not anyone in particular, but I see a lot of the old bands, they tour around, and they do like shows here and there, and they play this and that album, in its entirety. And I'm sure it's fine, to do it like that. It's obviously the fans of the band are probably as old as the bands themselves now. It's an old genre, and I don't think it's attracting much new listeners. So at least not in the way it was before. So obviously nostalgia is a big part of it, but for me, nostalgia is like, that's murder, that's like the death of creativity. So I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's fresh and interesting and in the time, so it's possible to morph the sound and morph the approach you had into something fresh and new without being a sellout or commercial, whatever. It's change is interesting, so that old retro thing is not for me, so.
Do you have any music project?
Well, yeah, I do. I don't want to say anything specifically because I'm working on it, but I did build my home studio a couple of years ago. So I decided that I was going to pick up writing music again, and I have been doing that. But for now, it's just experimentation with the form, and I'm working on a electronic music album at the moment, which I will release, but I'm not sure if it will be this year, next year, something like that. Which will be again something very different. It has nothing to do with the Kovenant or any black metal stuff to do, but it will be like different version of things that I'm interested in. So that's the only concrete plan I have. And yeah, we'll just see what happens. You know, it's whatever I do, I'm going to do it because it's there's some, what can I say, value in it, you know, like artistically, and not just, you know, life's too short to pretend that you're going to be like a old famous rock star. You know, it's it has to be worth it mentally, for me at least. So, but people are different, you know. I mean, we have different appreciations of things in life, but I'm going to release music again, absolutely. And I'm sure some people are going to hate it, some people are going to love it, probably, I hope, but it's not for the metal community as such, you know. If I do metal music again, then it's going to be something that like is a bit far out, you know. I like stuff that challenges your ideas of what things should be. So a lot of stuff has happened musically over the last 20 years. And I think it could be interesting to do something, but I definitely don't want to go back to 1997 and pretend, you know, that everything's the same, because it's not, you know. So that I'm not going to do. But yeah, I guess I'll try to let people know when it's about to arrive.
If you want to be remembered for an album of your career, an album you're particularly proud that you have done, which is and why?
Well, I'm proud of my songwriting with the band Kovenant in particular. I mean, the heart of the band will always be Nexus Polaris, because that was such a definitive statement, you know, of something that we wanted to do, and that was just came together really well at the moment. But that was like a short, that was like a window of opportunity that really worked well. But yeah, I think people can listen to the stuff I've done over the years and really hear that I have like some intention and honesty and musical communication in the stuff that I do as a songwriter. And I think that was probably what I was most happy about. Not any commercial success or shows or anything like that. Just you know, when people now 20 or 30 years later listen to that shit, and they, you know, still gives them something valuable. That's quite something I didn't expect, to be honest. When I was a young man writing music, I never thought we'd have like this conversation 30 years ago. 30 years later, people give a fuck about it. You know, I thought that was just something in the future that would be different. But so that's equally terrifying and satisfying at the same time. You know, it's in a way sad that was the highlight of your career, but still, you know, it's even if it might not be, but still, it's also interesting that it has such a permanent value, you know. Like some things last, maybe it will last 30 years or even more, you know. Maybe it will outlast me, and when I'm dead and gone, somebody will give a shit about it. That's an interesting concept. I didn't think about that. What you put out in the world stays in the world, you know. I thought it was like, I always had like a approach that it was like that was, what's the word I'm looking for, transient, you know, like it was just a development of stuff, and it's like more like a consumed product that disappeared after a certain time. But so I didn't anticipate that at all. Actually, that's really a surprise to me that it stuck around. You know, so that's a good thing, but it's also, you know, a little bit pathetic. But anyway, yeah.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for staying today.
Yeah.
Good luck for your project. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. You're welcome. Bye bye.